Flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good morning, Commissioners. We'll call the meeting to order with a roll call. Commissioner Boyle, Commissioner Borgeson, Commissioner Kavanaugh, Commissioner Duda, Commissioner Kraft, Commissioner Morgan, and Commissioner Rogers. And the first item of business is the election of the Chair of the Board of Commissioners for the ensuing year. Are there any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Mary Ann Borgeson as Chairperson of the County Board.
Any other nominations? Any discussion? The motion on the floor is from Commissioner Morgan with a second by Commissioner Rogers is to elect Commissioner Borgeson as Chair for the year. Please vote.
Congratulations.
You ready?
Oh, we'll get it. It may be close, but we'll get it.
Okay.
Mary Ann.
Commissioner Boyle and Commissioner Kavanaugh, you need to push.
It's going to be a tough learning curve, I can tell.
Give him a break, he's an Irishman.
Motion passes.
Okay. Thank you very much. Well, thank you for your vote of confidence, and again, I look forward to a good year. I think we'll continue to work on our strategic plan, which I know Commissioner Duda just loves hearing that first thing out of the chute. But we've got a good start, and I look forward to continuing to work with that. So, and all of you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. With that, we'll move on to election of the Vice Chair for the Board of Commissioners.
I'd like to make the nomination of Chris Rogers as Vice Chairman of the County Board.
Second.
Are there any other nominations? Hearing none, I'll close nominations. Please vote. Congratulations, Commissioner Rogers. With that, we'll begin with the agenda for the Douglas County Board of Equalization. Roll call, please.
Here. Here.
Here.
Commissioner Rogers, Madam Chair.
Here. Item A, approval of the minutes of the Board of Equalization meeting held Tuesday, December 16, 2014. And item B, call for a meeting and set Tuesday, January 27, 2015 as a date for hearing on certified assessment corrections reflecting the addition of omitted property to the tax rolls or increased value on property. I have that after Board of Equalization.
You have the after Board of Equalization? Okay, all right. Okay. Was there a motion?
So I need a motion to approve A and B. Any questions or comments? Please vote. Next are citizen comments. Is there anyone in the chamber wishing to speak to the Board of Equalization about an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to resolutions. The first there's two resolutions. Item D, approving corrections for errors in assessment and personal property, and item E, application for tax exemptions on motor vehicles recommended for approval by the county treasurer.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Please vote. Next is a protest of certified assessment corrections, number 14146, submitted by Mount Sinai Church of God in Christ, from 5220 South 31st Street, Omaha. Good morning, Mr. Goodwillie.
Good morning, Commissioners. Congratulations, Commissioner Borgeson and Commissioner Rogers.
Thank you.
Also, congratulations to you, Commissioner Kavanaugh. Mike Goodwillie, Douglas County Douglas County Assessor's Office. Let me start anew. This is an entity that, despite the customary reminders that we send, did not file an application for exemption in 2014. We used, when we sent the reminders, I went back and checked with my staff, we used the address that's on their letterhead. I don't know whether they got them or not. They say they don't, but we certainly used their address, and in fact, we used the same address that the county used to notify these folks of the new value on their property. It appears they are, there's no 2014 application on file with us, so it looks like what they're asking for is a reduction in value similar to what the board has done with some others that didn't file a timely exemption application after we set a value. I can only reiterate, you know, the law does require people, it is mandatory, to file their application every year. It is the statute was written by the legislature, who constitutionally can create the rules for exemptions. We sent a reminder in November, another one in December, another one in January, and another one in May, and we received nothing.
Is there anyone here from Mount Sinai that we know of?
Or Mount Zion, rather.
Mount Zion.
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay.
I'm having staff reach out to them to be sure they're getting filed for 2015.
Okay. Commissioner Boyle?
Mr. Goodwillie, what's the history on this property? Has it been taxed before? Has it been tax exempt? Can you tell us?
My understanding is that it has been exempt as a church for a number of years.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Pardon me. My understanding is it's been exempt as a church for a number of years.
Number of years?
Yes.
Okay, and this, how far back do they, I've been trying to read this, but do they want to go back, what, just 1 year?
Well, they're talking about 2014. 2014 was the 1 year they hadn't filed, and so then we went ahead and determined a value in the fall, and that's what they're protesting. So this would only affect 2014.
Well, you know, it's kind of ironic because we just went through a rollback of personal property taxes, some of them in the millions of dollars that were for years previous. I think I saw one going back to 2011 for corporations. And here we have a church that's a small church, and that just rings a bell with me every time, because there's a lot of people opening the mail, a lot of people picking it up and throwing it on a desk, and it's one of those operations that's you know, a lot of volunteers. My feeling is that the Constitution of the United States, that was a camera that fell. The Constitution of the United States and of the state of Nebraska clearly define churches as tax exempt. And I think that just trumps any deadline that has to be, that we want to impose on them. So I would make a motion that we grant the relief being requested by the taxpayer.
Commissioner, I would just make this one observation. And the state constitutional provision you're referring to says the legislature may provide for exemptions for educational, charitable, religious, or cemetery organizations. Right. And the use of the word may means they can set up whatever conditions they wish. And good, bad, or indifferent, they've set up an annual filing requirement.
Well, let me ask you, did the state grant them an exemption? Do they have an exemption under state law?
Had they filed on time, I have seen no reason, I know nothing that would tell me that the property is not being operated as a church.
Okay, did they have an exemption in 2013, if you know?
They did.
Okay, and that's why I say I don't see that this is anything startling that we're restoring their exemption, which they have, and I think it's a real serious principle that we recognize. While I have a lot of problem with some of the nonprofits that we have in the community that are involved in some very business-like operations, I don't have a problem with churches when they come in and ask for an exemption. So I think it's, in a sense of fairness, they should be granted the exemption, which they had up until this time. I don't think a deadline for failing to file can repeal their status. I just don't think it can. I just don't. So my motion is to grant the taxpayer the relief they're requesting.
Okay, Commissioner Rogers?
I want to second it so I can, but I want to ask.
Don't tell me, let me guess, Commissioner, first-time offender?
It's a new year, so. That was a Christmas party.
Oh, okay.
But I second it to ask, can we lay it over 2 weeks? Because I just don't want to get in the habit. I mean, I know this church, and it's very small. I'd rather hold it over so they can ask, because I don't want to get in the habit of, it's a church and just grant it. Can we lay it over so they can come down and make the case? Because if they come and ask, I'm going to grant it, but because I know this church very well, but just in my heart, I don't want to, every time a church comes, I think they need to come ask. So if I'd like to ask if to amend it to lay it over 2 weeks to make the outreach.
I would agree with that. Although my history has been to constantly bring these up, and that with homesteads too. So I appreciate what you say, and that would be a good thing to do if we can lay this over for 2 weeks.
So the motion on the floor has been withdrawn to
Yes.
second, and you're replacing it with a layover for 2 weeks.
I'll go with that.
Okay. Commissioner Kraft?
And a young lady came in, are you with the church?
Are we talking about Mount Zion?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, well, I'll take that back.
Oh, good.
If you would come up to the podium, please.
Great observation.
Very good.
Should be a detective.
Mike Graff, PI.
Nice to meet you.
Good morning.
Why don't you go ahead and speak into the mic, say good morning, I think we'll ask you some questions.
Okay, my name is Dana Perkins Hom. I'm the chief administrator there at Church of Mount Zion Church of God in Christ. And so good morning. I got the wrong information, so I've been running around trying, so I apologize for being late.
You're fine. Could you tell us what the reason was why there wasn't a filing done on your tax exempt status?
We used to get this. We are a small church, and we used to get the filing or the notice that, hey, your tax exemption is due. We used to receive forms. But I understand that there was a new process that postcards have been sent, and we were to do it online. We never received like a postcard, and we've had some transitions in our secretarial staff, but trying to follow up, we never got the notice. And so by the time we did, they said that, hey, it's too late. And then I think even an assessor, a property assessor, had even went out to the church to assess the property. But for the history of this church, we've always been nonprofit. And so we were late in filing, but they said, okay, it's too late, you have to pay property tax. So that's why we said, okay, let's appeal and let them, assure them it's still a church. We're still operating in the community, but there's no business that I know of that's going on besides the church business and ministry that's going on and just helping the community there. But so we're just appealing to, we're appealing to the court, the board, that to allow us. And we did finally, I went online, but it wouldn't allow me
to file. Yeah.
But it did allow me, I think, to do the 2015. So that should be already done. But even the system is really, really hard to follow of the new process. So I'm not sure, because we tried to do it, and then we even sent in paper copies, but I'm not sure.
Dana, do you have a phone number?
402?
Okay. Yes.
So with this information,
I'll resend if I can.
Okay.
I go along with it. Restate my motion that we...
Second.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Boyle, you had your light on. Okay. So there's a motion to grant the tax exemption to Mount Zion Church of
So what about the...
God in Christ. Please vote.
I think they're going to give you your exemption, which means the taxes will be removed. Let's see how they vote.
Okay. You have been granted your tax exemption today.
Thank
So
you.
thank you for being here.
Thank
I will
you.
have somebody call you today about that 2015.
With that, we do have a presentation. It's an update from the referee hearings on confession of judgments for 2014 from the property record file amendments of value from a Mr. Monty Bowman. Good morning.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Monty Bowman. The referee hearings that we had to do a second time, those results just finally came through about 1 week ago. We started off in the informal hearings in February last year with 29 properties that we represented. 25 of those continued through the protest period, and only 21 of those filed appeals to Turk to get the case numbers so we could have the referee hearings again. Of those final results, 5 of those were passed on by Mr. Pinkham in the county attorney's office to Mary Ann Borgeson, I believe. And those 5 were, it was kind of unique specifically because we chose those 5 for a reason. One of them was based on a appraisal that was Mudra Construction Contracting, an individual, single. He'd been living in part of the building, semi-retired. That was an appraisal that had originally been done by Mitchell and Associates, and it was something that was pretty well known that he also resided in it. It was a flex mall building. Did the appraisal, had a couple of people interested in buying it, and when the appraisal came in at $315,000, which was still over $100,000 less than what the assessed value was currently at, he couldn't sell the property. They weren't going to pay that much at that time for the property. So that's where the assessment report was specifically done to try to put it out on the market. Nobody would pay that amount at the time. Hawks Hollow was the location of one at 6001 Maple. That one was also extremely unique because they paid kind of a, I would have said an extremely high price, a little over $425,000. But at the time they purchased that property, the prior owner was in incarceration, tax evasion, quite a few other items. And the reason that sale, it had a couple of reasons why it would have been abnormal. They also purchased a lot with it. But unlike residential, there is no disclosure in commercial. So after making the purchase to the property, deciding to try to take on tenants, she receives notices from OPPD and so on that there's over $65,000 worth of work that needs to be done or she'll never open those doors. So they spent the next 4 months getting the property prepared, and it's one of the reasons why there's an increase from where the prior value was, but yet it's quite a bit of a reduction from where they wanted to take and move the value. They were taking into consideration that these were things that were not disclosed during the sale, nothing that they could really do about it except fix it, and it just added to more of a burden to try to get the property rented. 72nd Street Hospitality, that is the old Executive West, which is now the Doubletree Hotel. This thing was in extremely bad shape, very bad distress sale. It was a 1031 exchange when they first purchased this in 2013. It took months before they could even get the building permits to start doing the interior demolition. This property actually still is not open. They were originally scheduled to open in November of last year, then it was December. Waiting for the loan process, this hotel will not open until February, about mid-February, and due to their licensing agreement, they have to wait 90 days from that point before they're able to open the restaurant. We had sought a reduction only in the improvement value of 85% because it was basically a shell. The referees said it would be 65%. We agreed to that. That's what would have reduced the amount from $2.8 million to $1.9 million. We also learned during that referee hearing that that specific property was reassessed for this year, and they originally wanted to set that amount at $5 million. It was a little over $5 million. $5,600,000 was how much they were originally going to set it at. Again, it sat empty all of 2014 as well, not able to get the building open. One of the other things that we're working on right now is they are creating 85 jobs for the community. So we're looking at tax credits and so on for them, because that's from where it was before. They had 12 people on staff for a year. That's it. So the hotel was basically ran into the dirt. When they bought it, they had $20,000 worth of personal goods that had to go right to the dumpster. So it was just a real bad mess that they went into over there. The next two were part of the presentation that we had provided, where we used 3 examples. One was from 2011, which was Merigen, which led to trying to fix the problem back then. There was one property ahead of them that was the Hampton Inn. It was corrected. Merigen was never done. The other 2 samples we brought up, one was from this year and one was from last year. This year's was Johnson Brothers Screen Printing, where the property record file disclosed only a screenshot. Well, didn't really give us much of a clue, but when we were at the first referee hearing, we saw that 6001 Maple was being used as one of the comparables when that's Hawks Hollow, and we knew that was not a good comparable sale to start with. We fought this argument based on the fact of the condition of the property, because we had absolutely nothing else to go on whatsoever. $65,000 estimate just to repair the parking lot for the property. There's estimates for the amount of roof damage. They've tried to seal it over and keep trying to seal it over, but it's got to be completely redone. It's one of the reasons why the recommendation drops the value back to $224,500, which is where it was before any increases occurred. The last one of those 5 is the Midwest Land Company. It was part of the presentation as well. They filed a protest 2012. Actually, it was filed in 2013, being told by the then administration of the assessor's office that they would be calculated based on an income basis. They released those profit and loss statements. Receiving no consideration, we started looking at the property record file a little closer in the assessment report. That was where in the assessment report we found the information where they were calling into question the sale of the property as being a foreclosure because it came through a bank sale. They had also mentioned that extensive repairs had been done to the property. So we acquired a statement directly through the broker in which it was sold, showing that it had been on the market for over a year, had been relisted twice. They tried to take it through an auction. I believe the referee notes say that they hadn't met a reserve, but what they were looking for was the financial credibility of the company that ended up buying it. The financial credibility of the one who did buy it is the same individual who bought the Ramada right next door. So the Ramada and the Baymont are owned by the same owners out of South Dakota. Both of these properties were identical, and what we were able to show is that with Turk cases, extremely distressed, but it was definitely a normal arm's length transaction. Taking into consideration that with the profit and loss statements, the assessor's office originally had it listed as having either 131 or 129 rooms. The actual amount of rooms was 125, with only 85 operational and about a 32% occupancy rate. Taking that into consideration to the value, that's where the sales price was recommended, because it definitely coincides with the profit and loss statements that they're not making money. This was an exact identical scenario to the Ramada right next door. A lot bigger of a property, but the exact identical scenario where it had to go through so many code violations. They've lost anywhere from $1.5 to almost $2 million each year just trying to get it back to where it is. They're still under that scenario. We know at the close of the year they're going to be about $1.5 million in the negative again on the Ramada, and we know the Baymont's also going to be in the negative about $900,000. That's just the updates on those 5 that I guess I'm not sure how they go from here, because I know the board makes a decision on whether they accept those 5 on the confession of judgment, because then we will basically dismiss the rest of these at the state level. The other ones are being addressed because when we complete our presentation here, we will attempt to sit down with Diane Battiato and start addressing the amendment values and look at the property record files to make sure that this information, when we proceed into February, I feel a lot more comfortable this year knowing we're going to be seeing maybe a little bit more consideration and more attempts at trying to lessen the caseload for BOE and eventually for Turk as well.
Okay. Commissioner Boyle has a question or comment?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Sam. I want to ask our legal counsel if there's some action we can take today or if there's something we should be doing in response to Mr. Bowman's presentation.
Teresa, your County Attorney's Office, it would be my recommendation that this board not act today, as this, it's my understanding that all of the items discussed are pending at Turk, and so Turk currently has jurisdiction with regards to these cases and not the BOE.
Thank you. That's what I was, the last time you appeared, and then today, this morning, I did want you to make the presentation, but again, we don't control the world. We like to think we do, but we don't even control the parking lot in this building. So, you know, we'll do whatever we can to help you get relief, but it's we don't have any authority to act. The procedure has to run its course, and perhaps there'd be something afterwards, but there isn't now.
At this point, what we had been told was that we did file these 5 were part of the Turk. Basically, we are redoing the referee hearings as themselves, and as such, that's why these were recommended for the Board of Equalization, because after referee hearings, they do approve those recommendations if they agree with them, and that's where there's a confusion, is because we have 2 items. We do have a confession of judgment, and if that is accepted through the normal BOE procedures, which is what you normally do, those referee recommendations come to you for your approval. And that's exactly the procedure that we're repeating right now. Because if you approve it, then it goes to Turk. Turk, we let them know we're going to accept this confession of judgment. Then we would be dismissing this, because Turk is trying to use this as an informal resolution before having to have an official hearing on it. So we're actually getting these a lot sooner than what the normal 2-year period was, simply because of the errors that occurred during the referee hearings this year. So Turk agreed to this. We got all the case numbers assigned. Basically, we finally got through all of these procedures, but it now is supposed to, as a normal procedure, recommendations from the referee that we agree with then come directly to the Board of Equalization for their approval.
Well, what I would recommend, if I were in your shoes, with our legal counsel telling us that there's nothing we can do, then we're pretty much boxed in. What I would do, I don't know who told you that this was the proper course.
Mr. Pinkham.
Pardon me?
Mr. Pinkham was the one who said that this is where it goes as it goes through, and he's with the County Attorney's Office.
Oh, I'm sorry, who is that? Here?
Yeah.
Do you want to? Yeah, sure. We're going to have the attorneys duel this out. Please give your name and your office.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jimmy Pinkham, Deputy County Attorney from the Douglas County Attorney's Office.
Right.
The process that the Board of Equalization is in right now is settlement, confession of judgment, stipulation. The only thing that the Board of Equalization could do is accept the confessions of judgment, and that is it. After speaking with legal counsel for the Tax Equalization Review Commission, it is in Turk's jurisdiction, which means that outside of settling confessions or stipulations, there's nothing else the board could do legally.
Nothing what?
Nothing else the board could do legally.
Okay, so is there something you think we should act on today or in the near future on this matter?
Well, I don't think that I could tell you what I think that you should do. It would be up to the board if you chose to stipulate to any of the referee's recommendations.
Okay, well, this is a little unusual, but I'd like you, the county attorney's staff, to work with our attorney, and so we can get a clear message as to what we're supposed to do and when we're supposed to do it. That'd be very helpful.
Sure, and if the board chose to stipulate, I believe that would go on an agenda. And my understanding is that the board has not made a decision to confess judgment or stipulate. Is that correct?
Well, no, but that was my question, is that if these are in Turk's jurisdiction at this point, do they not just have to agree to allow that confession of judgment to take place, and we put these on the board for approval?
In order for a confession of judgment, both parties would have to agree to it. Turk would choose if they want to accept the confessions of judgment.
So we have to get their okay first, and then they come back?
My understanding is that the board would approve it, and then it would go to Turk,
Then
and
it
they would
would go
determine
to
if they
Turk.
want to accept the confession.
Okay, so in 2 weeks then, we could have these back on for action, which would be approval of these confession of judgments, and then they go on to Turk for
And
theirs.
then it goes on to
Okay,
Turk's approval.
Okay, I got it, okay. Commissioner Kraft?
Thank you, Commissioners.
Uh-huh.
Thank you.
Mr. Goodwillie, did you want to chime in on this?
Not at this time, Commissioner, but we will prepare something for the county attorney's office.
Thank you.
Okay, so with that, in 2 weeks,
Commissioner, if I may. If I
Teresa?
may. Thank you so much, Teresa, York County Attorney's Office. In the past, the board has not voted on the confessions of judgment as a routine matter. We have discussed in executive session the merits of settling or not settling any particular case, and that would certainly be available to the board in any of these instances, but that hasn't really been the process in the past. So it's more been an interaction between the county attorney's office and the assessor's office in the past.
That's where there's a big difference in this, is because this is during the referee hearings and not necessarily a confession of judgment does involve input from the assessor's office. The referee proceedings, which is what we were trying to do again, basically has them as the intermediary between the property tax, the property owner and the assessor's office. So it's their recommendation, because hired as a commercial independent referee, they're making this recommendation. Usually there is a coordinator that would look at their decision, and then that is passed on to the board for their approval. This is unique because we do have a confession of judgment. It's trying to redo the referee hearings that didn't quite get done the way they were supposed to the first time, so it is definitely unique.
So, Teresa, just to clarify, while we have not proceeded in this manner in the past, it doesn't preclude us from doing it because this is a little bit different situation.
To be honest, Commissioner, it is a different situation. I'm not 100% sure. So if I may, I'll answer that question when we return 2 weeks from now. But it certainly would be a departure of the core of this board's actions in the past.
Right. Okay. So we'll bring this back in 2 weeks with a little bit more clarity as to what legally action we should or shouldn't be taking.
Okay.
Okay?
And then we will do a follow-up then as well on the finals for the property record file and amendments of value. We can do that as well for the 27th.
Okay.
All right.
Perfect.
Thanks,
you,
Mr. Bowman.
Thanks,
I kind
everybody.
of wish I had some property that needed to be appealed. I'd hire you. You do a great job. Thank you.
Is there a second?
Second.
Please vote. We will now move to the agenda for the Douglas County Board of Corrections. Roll call, please.
Here.
Here.
Here. Item 1, approval of the minutes of the Board of Corrections meeting held Tuesday, December 9, 2014.
So move.
Any questions or comments? Please vote. Next, citizen comments. Is there anyone in the chamber wishing to speak to the Board of Corrections about an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we will then move to the report from our Director of Corrections, Dr. Mark Foxall. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Commissioners. Mark Foxall, Director of Corrections. You have before you the monthly report for December 2014, last month of the year, the calendar year. Enclosure number 1, for 5 months into the new fiscal year, and we are over budget as indicated due to retroactive pay, but that will resolve itself in the coming months. Point 2, City of Omaha was billed through November 2014, and they have been paid 90% of their invoices through September 2014. They have audited invoices through July of 2014 and paid audited invoices through audited invoice balances through July of 2014, putting their current balance at $583,245.21. Enclosure number 2, Community Corrections. Heather Robinson was selected as the new GED instructor for Community Corrections. She began her term with us on January 5th. You know, we've talked about that in previous months, so we're glad to have Ms. Robinson on board. She is currently training now and will be up to speed in a few weeks. Network Ninja representatives, developers of Collaborate, travel to the Department of Corrections to train staff and contractors who will utilize the software in December. Their arrival date for the training was December, Staff tested the software on site to become familiar with the application and identify any issues that require attention before go live. We will switch to the live version this month, and reporting functions are being built in during the upcoming weeks and months. Additional data regarding program performances will be available, and our plan is to incorporate this information from RAP, from work release and jail programs into the monthly report. So as Collaborate goes live, you will have more information available to you in this monthly report. Further, officers and staff, the Department of Corrections will be trained in an evidence-based practice known as motivational interviewing during the first quarter of 2015. It is hoped that the ability for officers to reinforce the concepts taught in the programming classrooms, as well as what will be offered in the upcoming implementation of jail TV programming, will significantly strengthen the positive impact on offenders. Motivational interviewing training is the final activity to be implemented from the FY 2012 Second Chance Act grant. Again, these are all steps towards improving our interpersonal communication with clients, inmate population that we deal with. So I'm really excited about what we will be able to glean from the motivational interviewing, and I'm really excited about the startup for jail TV and the programming that we will be able to provide through that medium. 24/7 alcohol sobriety program added 8 new participants in December, finishing the month with 60 participants in the program. 5 sobriety technicians, first employees dedicated to the 24/7 program, were trained and began their duties in December. These are part-time employees and reduce the need to draw on existing security staff to operate the program. We continue to work with Intoximeters, Inc. on software enhancements which will enable us to provide a wide variety of program data in the future. With respect to work release, that program admitted 54 individuals in December. 2014, 750 individuals were admitted to work release. Work release clients donated 1,137 hours of community service during the previous month. During 2014, work release clients donated approximately 17,747 hours of community service during the year, which is a very good number. House arrest admitted 61 individuals during the month of December. Those individuals provided in 2014, 1,118 individuals were admitted to house arrest. And that's the aggregate number for house arrest. During the month of December, house arrest individuals or clients donated 398 hours of community service, and for the year, they donated 6,893 hours of community service. Moving to the Reentry Assistance Program, 20 individuals were admitted for the month of December. In 2014, that program admitted 298 individuals. And corrections programs, this would be in-house programs. 57 individuals were admitted to the program during the month of December. In 2014, 739 individuals were admitted to in-house corrections programs. Moving to pretrial services, those individuals admitted for the month numbered 23. for priority prosecution, thus saving 273 bed days in the month of December. In 2014, 3,469 bed days were saved as a result of this program, that being the priority prosecution program. 196 individuals were placed on pretrial release in December. A total of 2,538 individuals were placed on pretrial release during 2014. 689 individuals were managed on the pretrial release program in December, and that program achieved a 96% compliance rate. In other words, individuals who were supposed to be reporting in did so. So that's a good number for us. Moving on to enclosure number 3, representatives from the Nakamoto Group were on site December 2nd to the 4th to conduct the annual ICE audit. We've not received a final report on that as of yet. I will brief you as that comes in. Enclosure number 4, personnel. On December 31st, class 14-3 graduated 22 individuals. Those individuals are currently in their second week of the field training officer program. Enclosure number 6, with regard to our population. As you know, in the cooler months of the year, our population decreases. Last month, we had a total admissions of 1,156. We released 1,367. Our ADP, or average daily population, was 968. The United States Marshals population decreased during the previous month. ICE population decreased during the previous month. Felony pretrial population and the misdemeanor pretrial population also decreased. The female population, I've spoken to that in the past, which we've been keeping a close eye on, also decreased. There are only 2 female housing units open at this time. Moving to enclosure number 7, medical, had 1,103 screenings. Health and physicals, 411. Discharge referrals were 493 for the month. Mental health, enclosure number 8, initial psych assessments are 53. Initial mental health assessments are 77. Mental health infirmary placements are at 37 for the month. Referrals to community-based mental health services, outpatient psych, medication management, 3. Mental health and co-occurring disorder treatment programs, 167. Mental health therapy, 45, and no long-term psych facility placements. You can see I've also incorporated the charts for you in the subsequent pages that give you a little bit of a visual of the activity in the previous months going back to September of 2014.
Commissioner Boyle?
Yes. Thanks, Sam. Thank you. It was an excellent report. I'd like to, the next time we have to, not have to, the state law does require us to go through and tour the facility. What I would like to do is, instead of a normal tour, I'd like to have a serious discussion under the section of community corrections. There's so many good things that you're doing that it's, there's a lot more information that we can really dig into, and we're not going to micromanage, but we're very, I am very excited about what you've done over the years. And I like to look at items like screening so that we understand what you really do when you screen somebody who comes in, what you look for, how that all works, and also particularly on the mental health portion. We're, as you know, trying to do our best to make some serious changes to how we can treat the mentally ill that are in corrections and other facilities in the county for that matter, and you're a very important player in that. I think it'd be useful if we could, instead of a tour of walking around looking at the cafeteria, which is a good thing too, but to sit down and maybe meet in one of the rooms and talk about community corrections, and emphasis on mental health and screening. I'd sure like to see that. I think it'd be helpful the next time we do this.
Consider it done. We can do that.
Okay,
The mental health director is here, and I know we're always excited to talk about mental health and what the status quo is and what we're trying to achieve and what some ideas that we have and the different groups that we're working with in the community to provide better opportunities for individuals who are coming in or individuals that we have in our facility at this time.
Well, I'll speak for myself, and I'm sure the board feels this way, that we're very supportive of the work that you're doing, and the more we know, the better off everyone is, so that we can really focus on what we can do to really help you accomplish your goals, which I'm in total sync.
Okay. We'd be happy to provide that information.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kraft?
Yes. You mentioned Gel TV, and for the public who may be watching, not understanding necessarily what we're doing, would you explain it to the public?
Sure. Mike, why don't you come down? Let me
Because
kind of
I
give
just
you
know when I go out for coffee, somebody's going to say, "What are you doing, buying big new flat screens?"
Well, we are going to buy additional TVs to put in the unit, but we're also going to provide software and programming that allows us to push educational knowledge programming into all of the housing units. Right now, kind of isolated in how we offer that educational programming. With the jail TV component, we're going to be able to push education into all of the housing units, both the secure side of the jail and in community corrections. But Mike Myers and Justine Wall have been working very closely with that project. It's really exciting what we're going to be able to do and the amount of education that we're going to be able to push into the housing units. But I'll let him explain a little bit more detail.
Thank you.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
Mike Myers, the Community Corrections Manager for the Department of Corrections. As Dr. Foxall said, Jail TV is a way for us to use technology to push programming and education throughout the entire campus, both buildings, instead of having to rely on people who are selected and screened to go into specific programs or specific housing units. We can touch all of the folks with this technology. We will be building content as we go forward. We will work with the National Reentry Resource Center and the National Institute of Corrections and the resources they have to implement evidence-based programming through this medium. We will also, one of the interesting things is we can push out information about community resources. Picture, watching CNN with the crawl across the bottom of the screen. We'll be able to educate people, or at least it's available for them. They can see how to access services both inside the facility and in the community. We can continually push that information across the screen for them, so they know where to request if they feel like if there's a housing issue or an education issue or an employment issue or a parenting issue. We can load information from a wide variety of our community partners, human service agencies that provide all sorts of support in our community. All those things can be advertised, if you will, throughout both buildings at the Department of Corrections. We're even exploring the idea of putting resources into the lobbies of both buildings and tailoring that information specifically towards family members. Resources that they may be able to tap into, as well as providing other just information about the Department of Corrections and the frequently asked questions and so forth, that we can. That's another key way we can interact with the public and provide that familial support to our folks as they're being released.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Rogers?
Mark, on Section 7, is it possible, the last page where it says where you all put together the past 5 years, is it possible to play with that number and sometimes to pull out the frequent flyers? Because from reading it, it says that those are just a number, so there could be some people that be counted multiple times. Is it a way to really create a separate column and get a sense of the frequent flyers and how many times they're frequent flyers? I mean, could that be worked on, not instantly, but looked at?
I think it's possible. I'm working with the University of Nebraska in Omaha to, as we move into the new semester, for a couple of interns, and I think that's something, a good opportunity for an intern to help us gather that data. So it may take us a little bit to put together, but it's certainly not an insurmountable task. So I will say yes, but give me an opportunity to put a plan together.
Okay. And I wanted to now, and I'm going to ask Commissioner Borgeson this. I want to get a size because we made the statement about the largest mental health facility. I just want to make sure, even looking at these numbers when we look at the last 5 years and then monthly, there was a point, and I don't know if it's the same for adults, but juvenile, when Youth Links, and I don't know if this is mental health, there was this issue about the state and Medicaid because there was just the ability to have 40 people capacity. 16. Is that number the same for adult mental health facilities? And I'm just trying to get a feel on when we say we're the largest, what is the average size of a mental health facility in the state?
It is for community providers, both adult and juvenile.
16 is the number?
16 bed is the number,
So,
in order to get your Medicaid.
okay. So when we say we're the largest provider and the ideal setting is community care, 16 is the number you're looking at. When we say there's not,
It doesn't mean for jail.
No.
No, but I mean, when we say, if we got people that should be getting community care and they're housed there, when we say that the state's number is 16, if we have, I think the county is somewhere, inmates diagnosed with mental health, 482, I'm just trying to paint this picture that the state gives 16 people community mental health capabilities. We got 482 in here that have been diagnosed. Depending on what the crime is, how it is, that this is the number we're dealing with in regards to gap between capacity and what we're housing when we make the statement we're the largest mental health facility in the state. You see what I'm saying? And I'm not saying that. I just want to make sure that I'm correct in saying, and I want to repeat again, from what Commissioner Borgeson said, the largest capacity that a community-based facility can have is 16 people.
Right.
We have 482
Right.
diagnosed.
Correct.
So I'm just wanting to paint that picture that I'm fair in saying, when we say we're the largest by multiples because we
yes.
don't have that capacity community-wise. I just want to make sure I'm painting the picture right.
Now, State Department of Corrections probably has more than that.
Right.
But they're spread out over
But we're
10.
the biggest facility, not system.
Under
we're
one
the biggest
roof.
facility.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
But that doesn't count for, like, there's providers that don't provide, quote, beds that have larger numbers of people that they're serving. So the entire, say, Community Alliance, for instance.
Okay.
There's a larger number to which they're providing. Okay. But in their programs in which they have a variety of different kind of, quote, beds, they can only have 16 beds for that particular program.
Okay.
Right.
And it's not direct science, but I just want to make sure.
Right, I see
we got
what you're saying now.
We got 482 people.
Yes.
That don't have beds. And beds being used here because there's not capacity out there.
And that's a pretty broad spectrum of behavioral health issues, too.
Okay. All right. Can I ask one more? God, never mind. I'm getting old. I forgot my question.
I have to tell you, though, we have not talked this morning about this report, and the question that you asked about the frequent flyers, I had written in here to ask Commissioner Kraft.
Yes, and talking about the frequent flyers, and the depth of data, depending on what someone decides to go after, you might consider somebody who's working on a doctoral thesis, either in criminal justice, mental health, social services, and they can, I see a wealth of data there that we don't just have to use the interns that are coming to us. You could perhaps seek out somebody looking to satisfy their doctoral thesis.
Mr. Kraft, you read my mind.
Okay.
That's exactly what I intend to do.
I know it may not be appropriate, but I'm going to make a motion at this point that since Mike would like to know more about the screening, we volunteer Mike for the candidate.
Subject.
Are you going to second that, Mike?
Yeah, I guess I'll second it.
That's really a very good question, and it seems pretty simplistic when you talk about screening, but we screen at numerous points along the continuum for people coming into the facility after off-street arrest, and a whole battery of screening for individuals for placement into either RAP or house arrest or work release programs or pretrial release or 24/7. So there are a lot of different mechanisms in place to screen people, to vet individuals, to route them to the appropriate housing unit, to the appropriate programs inside the main facility, to the appropriate community corrections program, be it RAP, house arrest, work release, or pretrial, or 24/7. So we'll have something on board for you so that you can see all of those processes and how they work from the initial point of screening, which is at the booking window, and the types of questions that we ask to get the information that we need, and then they march through to classification, and then on upstairs for the placement in the housing unit. So we'll provide all of that information for you.
Okay.
I think that's a good use of that time when you do the tour. So.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Please vote.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Oops.
Motion passes.
Next is the agenda for the Douglas County Board of Commissioners. We are reconvened. I suppose just take roll call for the record just to have it.
Commissioner Boyle?
Here.
Commissioner Kavanaugh? Commissioner Duda? Commissioner Kraft?
Here.
Commissioner Morgan? Commissioner Rogers? Madam Chair?
Here. Item A, approval of the minutes of the Board of Commissioners meeting held Tuesday, December 16, 2014. And item B, approval of claims submitted for payment processed through Tuesday, January 20th, 2015.
Motion to approve A and B.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Please vote.
Motion passes.
Next is the consent agenda, items A through R. Are there any questions or comments or ones that people want to pull out?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion passes.
Recognition and proclamations. I think Mr. Lee Legier has an announcement here about Martin Luther King Day.
Thank you.
Members of the County Board, Lee Legier, Human Resources Director of Civil Service. Members of the County Board, I would like to invite you and our employees of Douglas County to attend our 10th annual Martin Luther King Day celebration and recognition program for county and city employees this Friday, January 16th, from 12 o'clock to 1 o'clock in the legislative chambers here at the Civic Center. At this year's celebration, we will have the national anthem sung by Honorable Diane Badiano, Assessor and Register of Deeds, the Black National Anthem sung by Kaeva Williams of the County Commissioner's Office, remarks by Mayor Gene Stothert, musical presentations by Eric and Doretta Jordan, and special remarks by our own Dr. Mark Foxall, Director of the Douglas County Department of Corrections. And we'll have some inspirational presentations by Patricia Carter of the Treasurer's Office and a lady from the community, Brittany Young. And this year we're going to be presenting awards to the county and city employee who were selected to receive the Martin Luther King Award for representing the life and ideas and values of Reverend King. This annual celebration of Living the Dream is sponsored by the Douglas County Civil Service Human Resources Department, the City of Omaha Human Resources Department, and the City of Omaha Human Rights and Relations Department. The program is meant to recognize Reverend King's contributions to all peoples in respect to civil rights, respect, and dignity. The program is open to all county and city employees and employees from the downtown area. Your attendance, and as many of our employees attend, is greatly appreciated, and you should have a flyer regarding the plan. And again, we would appreciate if you can attend, and there will be light refreshments.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Citizen comments. Is there anyone in the chamber wishing to speak to the Board of Commissioners about an item not on the agenda? Seeing none, we'll move to a presentation for the State Street Landfill Beneficial Use Gas Project update from Bioresource Development and Kent Holm from Environmental Services.
Good morning, Commissioners. Kent Holm, Director of Environmental Services. In December of 2013, this board approved a contract with Bioresources Development to move forward with the beneficial use project at State Street landfill, basically converting that flared off gas to a beneficial use. So today we've invited Greg McLean and Gary Kuhn with Bioresource Development here to give you an update on that project. They have proceeded and gotten quite a bit of traction on this and are getting to the point where we're going to be able to realize some beneficial gas use. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce Greg McLean. He's going to come down and visit with you a little bit, and I've got some things I'll hand out to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
For the record, my name is Greg McLean. I'm with Bioresource Development, one of the founding partners, and we're based out of Omaha, Nebraska. Address is 5062 South 108th Street, and I'm going to let Kent go ahead and hand out the handouts we prepared. These are a fact sheet and an FAQ sheet about the project. I'm going to cover a lot of the things that are in there, but this will be something you can take with you if there are other questions that you might have or some of your constituents may have in the future. I'll get my PowerPoint loaded up. I'm going to go ahead and apologize right now for making you read my PowerPoint this morning, but I promise the last couple slides are actually pictures, and we can, there's displays, we can show some aerial photos. As Ken had mentioned, this is a landfill gas utilization project that Bioresource Development has put together in conjunction with staff and officials with Douglas County at the State Street landfill. And as I mentioned, Bioresource Development, we are an advanced biofuels developer, and we're headquartered right here in Omaha. The principals with the company are all engineers. Some of us are former engineers, civil and chemical, with a lot of experience in a lot of areas, including, specifically for this project, landfill design, landfill operations, regulatory permitting that goes with those types of operations, a lot of experience with government contracting and project financing, and of course, knowledge with advanced biofuels and energy and how those are handled under the renewable fuel standards of the Clean Air Act. A little background on the landfill. Douglas County owns and operates the State Street landfill. It's located about approximately 126th and State Street. It began accepting waste in 1973, so it's a very old landfill in that respect. It was actually officially closed, received its last solid waste in 1989, and the gas collection system and the flare were installed in 1995 and made operational at that point. To essentially every landfill that's in existence produces carbon dioxide and methane gas, and the system was put in place to collect that so that it wouldn't be released to the atmosphere. Those are greenhouse gases, of course, and the flare destroys the methane and the carbon dioxide, and that's a requirement of the state and the EPA. And even though the landfill has been closed since '89, the county is still responsible to maintain and own the facility essentially forever. Over time, the amount of methane that it produces declines steadily, and eventually destruction of the methane is no longer required because the levels get to a certain level. But certainly, even though the landfill has been flaring for 20 years, there's still a lot of methane that's produced out there. Landfill gas has been, as I mentioned, collected and flared since '95, and just to kind of put that in perspective, the amount of energy that's been flared off is equivalent to about 68 million gallons of gasoline in that time. If you go all the way back to when the landfill was closed in 1989, it's closer to 156 million gallons of gasoline that's essentially gone up in smoke. But keep in mind, it's for a good reason. If it were not flared, those are dangerous greenhouse gases. Carbon dioxide is a greenhouse gas, of course. Methane is about 22 times more potent as a greenhouse gas, and so the methane that's produced is actually much more damaging to our for global warming and any other climate change issues that you might be concerned with. Bioresource Development approached Douglas County in 2013 with a proposal to develop the landfill gas for beneficial use, and we were actually approved by the Commission in December of 2013. And we've been working diligently since that time to get the project up and running. When we started the project, worked closely with staff and with officials to develop the project objectives, and they're fairly straightforward and fairly simple. Number one objective is to maintain regulatory compliance at the landfill. So, as I mentioned before, the county has a continuing obligation to maintain the air permit and to limit the greenhouse gas emissions, and that is still the number one priority for our operation, regardless of any other objectives we have. Second objective that we identified, and this is really a key to making the deal work, was to take over some of the operations and maintenance type requirements that the county is currently performing, and we would perform that as part of our obligation and remove that cost from the budget. And then the last objective is to create a beneficial use for the gas. So instead of just flaring it off, we're going to try and do something with that energy that can be used. And the last item is kind of an overarching, and this is generally part of every project we do, is we want to maintain public safety. And anytime you're dealing with flammable or explosive materials, one of the first questions people ask is it safe? And it is very safe. We will be in full compliance with all the regulatory requirements, and safety is a number one priority for us. The proposal that we developed included various aspects, and the first one was to do an engineering feasibility study, and that study would finally determine the gas quality that's coming out of the landfill today and the quantity, and we would evaluate different technologies required to process the gas to make the beneficial use. We would also evaluate the marketability of that finished gas product and the overall feasibility of our plan. We have completed that project, and we have determined that it is actually a viable project, and we have notified the county as such, and per the terms of our agreement, that notification was sent, and that initiates our obligation then to take over the operations and maintenance of the gas collection system at the landfill. So the project timeline basically was we were selected, we did our feasibility study, we've completed that. We've gone out and we've obtained private financing. The project is 100% financed with private funds. We have negotiated contracts necessary to move the gas and to put it on the local utility MUD, and also move the gas to appropriate end users to generate our revenue stream. We have identified the technology needed to treat the gas, and we've initiated equipment procurement for those processes. We have obtained all the necessary permits. We've had to modify the air permit at the landfill. That's all been completed. And as I mentioned, we've made our notification to the county, which initiates our assumption of those operations. So essentially starting in February, we will take over the actual hands-on operation of the gas collection system. And that cost, which was formerly paid to another contractor, we will now pay that contractor to continue to do that operation and provide those reporting requirements. The other piece of this project is that we've got to move the gas from the landfill to MUD, and that required that we build a pipeline. I never thought I'd be in the gas pipeline business, but we are now. And some of you, if you've been out in that part of town, may have noticed some construction along 120th Street, and that's where the pipeline was installed. I've got a display here in a second that'll show where that is. And we anticipate our startup for the facility, we're hoping to, by the end of February, to be producing finished gas. That may be a little bit optimistic on our part. We're at the mercy of some of our equipment delivery, but that's currently on the timeline right now, certainly this spring. Project benefits and features. As you recall, I mentioned that the project is 100% financed by private funds. There is no county money in this project whatsoever, so we're not relying on the citizens of Douglas County to have any financial stake in the project. Landfill gas will no longer be flared. We're going to have the beneficial use, so instead of all that methane going up in smoke, it's going to go into the pipeline, and the actual molecules that we produce will be burned in local water heaters and furnaces, and hopefully get into some CNG vehicles somewhere along the way. And the overall greenhouse gas emissions from the landfill will actually be reduced. We'll still be releasing some of the carbon dioxide because that's not used, but some of it will be consumed in our process, and certainly all of the methane will be removed. So we actually have a net reduction. We're actually cleaner than the flare. And the final punchline, of course, the whole thing is that the cost that we're taking off the annual budget for the county is somewhere in the neighborhood of $75,000 to $100,000 a year. That's avoided costs for the operation and maintenance of the collection system and for all the regulatory reporting and everything that goes along with that to maintain Douglas County in compliance. Oops, backwards once. Pictures, I promise pictures. This is an aerial. I'm going to use my mouse cursor. Hopefully I can move around here. The landfill, first of all, this is State Street, east to west. Here's 680 over here in the lower right-hand corner, and Fort Street down at the bottom of the display. The landfill is this light shaded green area right here. I'll have a close-up of that in just a second. And the dashed green line shows the route of our pipeline. This is about where the flare is located on the landfill, and we have a pipeline that comes down to State Street, over to 120th, and then all the way down 120th on county right-of-way to Military, and then somewhere down here it turns into City of Omaha right-of-way, and we're right along that the west side or the east side there down to Fort Street, and then we cut across to the about 117th and Fort is where that is, and that's the entrance to the MUD liquefaction facility, which is this area. I lost my cursor. Oh, there it is, right there. And that's where we deliver to the MUD system. And so our gas is blended at that point with gas that comes directly off the Northern Natural Gas pipeline, and it goes into the system. So that's a general location. If you were to drive out there today, you'd probably see some construction activity down here by MUD, but the pipe is already all installed. They do it with a plow, and so about all you can see on the ground is a line where they've cut it in, and it goes in pretty fast and slick, and so there's minimal disruption to the right-of-way. And we'll have a little bit of cleanup activity in the spring, but virtually will go unnoticed at this point. The pipe size is 2-inch in diameter.
All right, thank you.
And I'll just go ahead and say a couple things about the pipeline. As I mentioned, we're not gas pipeline experts, but we do have to be in full compliance with the State Fire Marshal's requirements for moving flammable materials on public right-of-way. The material we're using is a new product called PA11. It's relatively new. It's not been used in Nebraska. This is the first project north of Oklahoma where this has been used. It is a I'm going to call it a plastic pipe. It's a lot like HDPE, but it's a different material, and it's made with a different process, which the manufacturing actually has a 40% smaller carbon footprint than any other pipe material, including steel or high-density polyethylene. So, and it can operate at higher pressures. So it's actually a pretty good product. We're excited about that we were actually able to use a product that also has some green aspects to it. Plus the fact that it actually helped us a little bit on our construction time and budget too, so that's kind of an added benefit. This is a view of the landfill. It's a little bit of a perspective view. Let's see if I can get my arrow to come up again here. The flare is located along the east property line. It's about, 1/8 of a mile inside the property. If you're driving on 120th Street, which is down here, and you look off to the north, you can catch a glimpse of it if you just kind of look between the buildings and up the road, but you got to look quick. And you can't ever see the flare because it's enclosed. There's a big tube that stands up, and the flame is inside, so you never really see anything. But I can tell you that there's a lot of heat coming off that thing, and every once in a while there'll be a bird that'll fly across and become a roaster, I guess, at that point. But there's a maintenance facility right here, and this little blue box is the location where our equipment is going to go in. And then the orange line that you can see here is the pipeline as it comes out and goes to State Street. Just a little bit about the landfill. This is the landfill area here, and this white circle that you see is a road. It's a gravel road that kind of runs around the perimeter of the landfill for maintenance and access. And all these little white dots are wellheads. And on the landfill, there are wells that are drilled down into the waste material, and there is a suction that's applied on the entire landfill with some blowers over here, and they draw suction on the entire landfill, and all the methane and the landfill gas that's produced inside the landfill is collected in these wells, and they're all connected to a single pipe that comes over to the flare over on the east side. That's essentially how it operates. What we will do is we will intercept that flow before it goes to the flare, and we'll bring it into our process equipment, where we will remove nitrogen, oxygen, siloxanes, hydrogen sulfide, and carbon dioxide, leaving essentially 97% methane, which matches the gas that's on the natural gas pipeline today. So by the time we're done with it, it's essentially the same as the gas that goes to your water heater. And that's all handled right there on site. There are no toxic byproducts that are created from that. We do have some media that's replaced from time to time, and whatever needs to be disposed of is disposed of at a classified landfill. So there's really no harmful byproducts whatsoever from the process. As far as safety, natural gas is quickly dispersed in the atmosphere. We do have pressure vessels, but they're all heavy gauge steel. There's no risk of rupture. If it is, the gas quickly disperses and won't support a flame. So we really don't have those kind of risks inherent in the operation of the system. We will have automated systems in place so that if there ever is a problem with either with gas quality or with the pressure on the system, we have automatic shutdown systems in place that'll handle those type of situations. So there's not a risk either to the quality of gas on MUD or from the site itself. And that's really essentially the Reader's Digest version of our project. It's been taking us a year to get to where we are today. I thought when we started the project, the financing would be the hardest part. That turned out to be the easiest part. It was all the contracts that go with selling the gas that has taken a lot of the time. But I'd like to open it up to any kind of questions you might have at this point. I'd be happy to address anything.
Thank you. Commissioner Kraft?
Yes. You said that you hope to be online the end of February?
Yes.
Okay. I'd appreciate either 3-month or 6-month update.
Absolutely.
Now, is there going to be somebody on site during the day or all the time, or is this totally automatic?
Well, the answer is yes and yes. The system is automatic and will run continuously 24/7, and it will be monitored remotely. But during the day, the county still has staff that has to be on site during the open hours, which I think are 7:30 in the morning till 3:30 in the afternoon. And so there's a body that's there. And so if there ever were an emergency situation, someone could go hit the red switch to shut things off manually if they had to, but that's not a part of our operation, really.
Yeah, so the county has to have somebody there?
Correct.
Okay.
But for other purposes.
Okay.
Not to operate this system. There's really, we do not have a requirement of county personnel having any obligation to monitor or operate any of our equipment whatsoever.
Okay. Well, one of the first questions I asked when I was being given a tour of the State Street landfill, and I think it was Jerry Leahy and Kent Holm were there, and I said, isn't there something we can do with this gas? Can't one of the educational facilities use it? And when he told me how much gas had been burned off, I realized why they couldn't have used it. Plus, the technology, I was told, was not there. So thank you for coming forward with your bid proposal, and good luck on your endeavor.
Thank you.
Commissioner Boyle?
Yes, I'm very impressed, and you did a great job with that.
Thanks.
I'm always impressed because I can't turn on the machine. It was very good, and I'm really impressed, and I want to thank Kent for pursuing this, and you're obviously very skilled and talented and know what you're doing, which is very important. I always like to ask questions about liability, and I know that it's in the contract, but I've asked our legal counsel to kind of give us a summary of who's liable for what and when and if. So I'd like to ask her to make a little brief report of what's in the contract regarding liability.
Teresa York, County Attorney's Office. There is, I believe, in each binder a copy of the contract that the board did with this for this project, and I would direct, there are actually at least 2 paragraphs I'd like to direct the board's attention to. And the first is general indemnification. It's on the bottom of page 7, rolling on to page 8, and it is reciprocal, and it is the general indemnification language that we usually see in contracts. And then in addition to that, because of the nature of this contract, there's an additional paragraph also on page 7. It's in the middle of page 7, and it's relates to environmental indemnification, and it is paragraph 6B, and spells out bioresources indemnification with regards to environmental issues. So there's a general indemnity that we usually see that's reciprocal, and then we also have an additional environmental paragraph contained within this particular contract.
Great. Thank you very much for that summary. I appreciate it. I always have an interest in that. And good luck. This is really terrific.
Thank you.
It's really, really good. And the pipeline won't be on any private property. It's all going down the right-of-way?
No, it's all on public right-of-way.
Good. Okay. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Duda?
Thank you. I just have to briefly say, how exciting this is. And Commissioner Borgeson and I were here in '95 when we this was the first methane recovery system installed in the state of Nebraska.
Correct.
And it was confusion about common sense says there's got to be some value here, but there was a lot of arguing and what do you do with this gas, and that delayed it for years. Until we finally said, we'll just flare it off and hope that maybe someday somebody can find a way to utilize it. And it's taken a long time, but to have somebody come forward, we had some people come forward at that time that didn't really have the credibility and track record to make things happen, and yet it confused the issue for everybody else. And so the progress, the whole thing just stalled for several years, actually. I'm thrilled to see this and to have people working with us that do have the expertise to make this a reality. It's an exciting day.
Great. Well, we're thrilled too. We hope we can actually make some money with it someday.
Speaking of money, your savings, $75,000 to $100,000 is impressive. Is that, I'm going to sound greedy now, but is that the cap of our savings, or is there a savings that could be calculated ongoing for the county taxpayers, or?
Well, it's essentially it's a cost avoidance. So every year the county budgets for a third-party contractor to come in and do the operations and maintenance services, emergency responses, and then there's also the regulatory reporting part of it. And so really what we've done is essentially taken that off the county's books and put it onto our books. And it serves two purposes. First of all, it provides a direct benefit in cost avoidance for the county, which is one of the easiest ways to provide a benefit directly back. The other thing it does is it helps our operation, because in order to be as efficient as possible, we would propose to operate the collection system a little differently than you would for a regulatory purpose. For a regulatory purpose, you just want to destroy the minimum amount of methane to meet your regulatory requirements. What we want to do is we actually want to increase the production if we can. There are ways to do that so we get more methane out. So we try to be a little more efficient, a little more hands-on, and so it helps us to have that control, and in return you get the benefit of us doing that. So that's really how that works. And the amounts vary from year to year. That's why we gave a range. There'll be some years when maybe the cost would not have been that high, but there'll be other years when maybe something breaks and we got to replace something where it might be a little bit more. But overall, that's a good range to look at. That'll continue as long as we're operating out there, and that expires the day we quit. But and by the way, one of the questions that you haven't asked yet, I'll go ahead and answer it, is because it was asked early at the start. What happens when we leave? And it might be 10 years down the road, it might be 12 or 15, whatever it is. At that point, we also have an obligation under the agreement to put things back like they were so that you can continue to meet your regulatory requirements. It's our hope that by that time, though, there will no longer be a regulatory requirement, and once we're done, we shut down and all you're doing is mowing the grass out there.
Great. Well, thank you. Again, your presentation was very easy to follow, so
Great. Thank you. That's the only way I know how to do it.
That's it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Commissioners, Kent Holm, Director of Environmental Services. Just one comment. Commissioner Boyle mentioned my name and associated with the project, but I do want to give a lot of thanks to Brian Norton, who is our Environmental Compliance Manager. He did most of the heavy lifting and the legwork with this project, so he needs a lot of credit. He's been working with these folks, and so I want to make sure that he got a mention and appreciate his help on all that.
Great.
So,
thank you, Ken. Next is a public hearing for a Class D license, beer, wine, and distilled spirits off-sale only for TFL Inc., DBA Mega Saver at 1910 North 144th Street. Manager application for Tamina Sammedia at 3712 North 108th Plaza, number 11. After we are done with the public hearing, the board may take action if they so desire. Good morning.
Good morning, Madam Chair and Commissioners. First of all, congratulations to you, Madam Chair, and to Commissioner Rogers. Also, welcome to Commissioner Kavanaugh. Congratulations to him as well. Mike Kelly, 7134 Pacific, for your record. And I can't pronounce anybody involved with this operation, but this is the TF Tobacco for Less folks. They're taking over a place that they bought from out on 144th Street. Just a straight C-store operation. We're here for any questions you might have.
Okay. Is there anyone here wishing to speak during the public hearing for or against this application? Seeing none, I will close the public hearing.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Please vote. Thank you. Next are the committee reports, the first being the Finance. Commissioner Morgan or Commissioner Duda, do you have anything for the budget report?
Not at this time.
Okay. Next is the Human Resources. The first item is the weekly personnel report from Civil Service as presented, if no one has any questions or comments on that. Second is the weekly CAO report on staff assaults.
Nothing to report.
And third is the legislative issues. As you all know, the legislature is in full swing, and the introduction of bills has began. And so you have the list, not absolute up to date, but up to January 9th. We'll get you the full one here within the week. Commissioner Morgan?
Just mention one quick thing for all of us. It's really important. On February 9th, we have the breakfast in Lincoln with the senators. Really try to keep your schedules open so we can certainly all make our presence known there. And Madam Chairman, if you have special things you want to give us concerning that meeting from Sean or Mike Kelly,
okay,
just let us know
right,
and we'll be there.
Okay.
It's at 8 a.m.
Yep, then down in Lincoln. And the...
Is Mike going to be there?
He's spending the night.
I'm going to start driving down there tomorrow.
Okay.
I'll be there. I am not. I mean, I just... Oh my God.
Maybe you can take him on the back of your motorcycle.
8 o'clock meeting in Lincoln, I'd love to give him a ride. You'd probably want to pick me up at 5:30.
There is also a list of the 2015 legislative committees and who are on those committees. Senator Christ, and I believe that you have all been given a copy of the legislative bill that he introduced regarding guardian ad litem. So we will have some further discussion on that. Senator Howard is also willing to introduce the issue on the private insurance being maintained for our inmates until the time of sentencing. There is a question about, we also have the Medicaid issue, of that Medicaid issue being continued until the time of sentencing. One question she did have, and I'll talk to Director Foxhall about this, was she was a little bit concerned that the county would not have in place the ability to do the coding or the billing if we did have Medicaid stay in place. One thing that we did clarify was these are individuals, it's not anything, it's not new people coming onto Medicaid by doing this. These are people who already have Medicaid that once they've come into our system, it's terminated. So, but further than that was if it is continued, then there was a question as to the coding and the billing, if we were going to be able to handle that. And so I'll get that clarified with the director, but it was good news that the private insurance will at least be taken up by Senator Howard. And so, again, we'll get you the full updated bill introduction one-liners, and I'll continue to update you as we go along. Commissioner Boyle?
I'd like a point of personal privilege, if I could. In spite of what Commissioner Duda thinks, I was up and ready to come to the swearing in this morning, but we had a fire next door and destroyed a beautiful Mets mansion. And we had, the streets have been closed for quite some time, and a fire hose was running across the street in front of our parking lot so no one could park there. My granddaughter's car was caught inside, and she finally got permission to drive on the sidewalk to get out last night. She works at UNMC. So anyway, it was a tragedy to see that happen, and I did talk to the owners, and they're just stunned. But so this morning, when I went out to get my car, it was locked in ice, and about 6 inches of ice next to the curb. And I didn't expect it. It was facing the wrong way. Traffic was parked all over the place, no parking zones, everything. So I called Patrick, who dispatched Marcos, who came out to give me a ride. In the meantime, I would have driven Ann's car, but of course her battery was dead. So they're coming out to start that. I really want to thank, what happened was that I was walking to get the car and started talking to some of the firefighters. Well, they followed me to my car, and they kicked the ice. They're all, in uniform, freezing. I'm sure it was just awful. They were there. They're still there. Anyway, the firefighters were from Truck 51, and there were 7 of them who did the work and got my car free of the tires, and so they gave me a couple pushes and we got out. But I really want to thank them very much. And also congratulate the chair and the vice chair. I wish I had been here. I think this is a real cohesive board. We have differences, and we do speak politely to one another most of the time. I think all the time. I try. I'm probably the biggest offender, but I'll try to be better this year. Commissioner Duda. But anyhow, those are my points, and I really, again, apologize for not being here. I was looking forward to that ceremony and having Commissioner Kavanaugh on board as well. So this is going to be a fun deal. We're going to continue the good work of the county. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Commissioner Boyle. Commissioner Kraft?
Yes, and I'd like also to congratulate Mr. Kavanaugh, or Commissioner Kavanaugh, for being here and a part of the team. I do have a couple things that might deal with what we'd want to look for on legislation. And one of that is, in light of all of the protests and things that have happened around the country recently, and things that have taken place here in Omaha, I believe that we should support a bill that would require any law enforcement agency to have an outside source do any internal investigations, so that whoever is, the Omaha Police Department's internal investigation would perhaps go to Douglas County, or to Sarpy County, or to the state. The same with something that happens in our correctional facilities, that the sheriff wouldn't do it. It's not the same political body. The other thing is the crime lab. With the incidents of the fingerprint reporting that's been brought to light in the past few weeks with Omaha Police Department, I again will reiterate what I've said over and over again, that it should be a totally arm's length transaction or agency that does the forensic analysis. We should not be doing it. The sheriff should not be doing it. The Omaha Police Department should not be doing it. So we seriously need to look at those issues. That's all.
I can give you an update very quickly on the crime lab issue. Once the article came out, I did reach out to the sheriff and individuals in the city and asked to have a meeting about that. If you remember, a couple years ago, we worked, Don Klein being a part of that, to come up with a plan to create that independent body similar to our users committee for 911, who had people on it that were not only end users but experts in the field. And at this time, I heard back that at this time they prefer to wait, since our current contract that we just did, or agreement that we just did, is only 9 days old, and would like to give that some time to work to see whether or not those efficiencies are created. I reiterated that I think there's still a need to continue to work on a full merger, as County Attorney Don Klein agrees as well. And so we will continue to seek those, keep that dialogue open and that communication open for that to occur.
And what I was looking for is not the merger of the two, which should be, but not only the merger of them, but the to divest ourselves of those duties.
That was part of it.
Right, and that's what Mayor Settle and I were working on, and very close to an agreement when I was chair. And I mean very close. We had everything set in place. The only thing we didn't have was the sheriff's agreement at that time.
Commissioner
Thank you.
Boyle?
Well, it's been a real moving target, and things have changed, and they constantly do. Of course, my opinion of this cooperative agreement is just that it's that. They're kind of agreeing to, change each other's tires as of no significance, but that's what we got. LB 46 last year, I managed to get, I talked to Senator Ashford, he introduced it, and I have to remind the board that it was a 6-to-1 vote, I think, going down there. But I went down and testified for the bill, which called for a merger, because, and I do agree that the better thing is to have an independent agency, but that was hopefully something that would come out of this merger. I was the only one who spoke in favor of it. The sheriff's office was there and spoke in opposition, and also the Omaha Police Department was there and spoke in opposition. And there was somebody else. So I was kind of the lone guy there, but it was very interesting because it's a judiciary committee, and it was a good, as I recall, a good group of senators, including Senator Chambers and Senator Ashford, among others. And but it didn't make it out of committee. There were a lot of things going on. So I hope that we become rededicated. And I'll be candid with you. I think I asked Marcos to prepare some information about the Sheriff's Office and the Omaha Police Department. And I really want to mention this in public. It's my understanding that Sheriff Dunning is serving his last term. He won't be running for re-election. And that the time is ripe for us to call for the merging of the Omaha Police Department and the Douglas County Sheriff's Office. And I've asked Marcos to look further into information about the calls that the sheriff responds to. The number of population, I understand, is really dropped again, below 90,000 people that are subject to being served by the sheriff in a 911 call. And I think it makes a great deal of sense for us to talk about having a municipal police force that does cover the county and works with cities of Valley and Bennington and so forth. But the time is here. It is the step that needs to be taken, particularly if Tim is not running for re-election. It opens it up. And I don't care who runs it, the sheriff or a new sheriff or someone taking his place or the police chief. I think we're really fortunate to have the chief that we have. I think the time's ripe, and so I've been with Marcos, has done a tremendous job, and I'll see that you get a copy of that report. But it's something that we need to get out on the table, talk about, and discuss seriously, because the time is ripe. Thank you.
Commissioner Kraft.
And when we go to the legislative conference in February in Washington, I think we should talk to Senator Ashford more and brief him on what we want to do in agreements between the county hospital and the Veterans Hospital. I also would like to see if he can help get us some funding, since the bond issue did not pass, to remodel the old Fitzgerald, thank you, Fitzgerald home for 911 public safety and for other pertinent uses that would save the taxpayers money.
Okay. Commissioner Duda.
Thanks. I just have to respond briefly to the idea of merging the sheriff and police department, which I do not support. I am not yet convinced that we would gain any efficiencies, and I just need to remind the board that the last time we studied this, and this was some time ago, but it was going to take at that point $1.7 million annually to equalize salaries. So, out of the starting gate, you got to find that much savings just to break even. And I don't think you are going to find that much savings myself. So I think it would be an expensive move, and I'm yet to be convinced that it's worth it. Thank you.
Commissioner Morgan.
Well, I was going to mention something concerning that matter, too. I think it's worthy of discussion. I think we have a responsibility to always look at all our options. And I think, what you suggested, Mike, I'd be glad to be a part of it, to at least explore the idea, right. Talk to, someone from the mayor's office about the idea. Maybe we start with the city council, but whatever way you think, to have some meetings later, certainly this spring or whatever, to at least talk about it and look at those costs, Commissioner Duda, that you mentioned, and see how the city and the county could come together. And as far as the city being that operation, because they've absorbed so much of the county, that we ought to take a serious look at it. So that's where I stand with it, and I have a very open mind to at least explore what might be saved in the service that we provide.
Commissioner Rogers?
Since this is brought up, I agree with you in looking at it, except for I don't want to give up control of some say in the public safety piece. So at least I just wrote to myself, if it's involved, I definitely think it's worth discussing if we can find it to make it revenue neutral in that respect. But at least personally, I'm not interested in giving control of public safety element totally to the city. There's some part I would like in the governance and accountability of that as a board. So I don't know if you create some super board made up of the council and the county board, but I'm just saying for the record, I don't want to give up my authority in the public safety part.
I think one of the things that we could put back on the table, and I actually talked to Commissioner Boyle about this, was remember when Dave Nabity had his plan where we actually create a imaginary line for jurisdiction purposes, that the county would do this part of the county and the city would do this part. And I honestly thought there was a lot of advantages and merit to that proposal. And so even though the merger always sounds flashy and good, and I would also like us to remember that plan and maybe pull it back up and talk about it, because I think we would be able to arrive at something more that Commissioner Rogers is talking about in terms of having some say and I'll use his phrase, skin in the game of public safety on the county side. So, and I still have that, and if I don't have everything, I'm sure I can get it from Mr. Nabity. But if you remember, he came to the board and presented it, and we all felt it was a very viable, good plan to look at, and I just think that that would be one that we should put back on the table for discussion as well. Commissioner Morgan?
I totally agree, and I think the other thing we ought to do is, rather than call it a merger, we ought to call it a partnership.
Yeah, something different.
And that might help us to get over some of the hurdles. But I think your idea, Chris, some of your thoughts might tie into what Commissioner Borgeson said. So, you know, at least that's what we're here for, is to discuss ideas, suggestions, and then sometimes for sure do away with them. But we'll see.
Commissioner Rogers?
I'm intrigued by your comment. I'm intrigued by the timing of it. And I just think we need to go big or go home. And I don't think you nip it. I mean, if we got 4 years to do it, I think we need to take a hard look this year to try to get it on the ballot, because I think and I'm with Claire. I want to see how the finances play out and if there's a way we can play. But, you know, I don't think we need to do it. I think you need to reconstruct it new, make it a, you know, municipal county type deal, or how we share the governance. But I think this is one where you need to look big and go home, big or go home, and don't try to nip and tuck it.
Right. Commissioner Boyle?
Well, I think this initial discussion is terrific. A lot of diverse opinions, and it's really helpful, I think, because we're all looking for a way to better serve the community. And, you know, I think with the money part of it, I can understand what Commissioner Duda is saying, but I look at it as those of us who live in the city limits are paying for twice. We pay for the Omaha Police Department to answer 911, and we pay for the Sheriff's Office to answer 911. The only trouble is the Sheriff's Office doesn't come in the city. So we're getting hit twice. And there are a lot of duties that the Sheriff's Office has, civil process and security of these buildings and so forth, that should remain as is. But I think the discussion, what I liked hearing today is that there's a lot of diverse opinion, and we're off to a good start. That's really a good sign that we're going to have a good discussion about it. So I hope that we get something going. We've got some time, that's for sure. And Tim may be unhappy that I announced he's not running for re-election, but I don't know if he is or not. But we need to look at these things, and the time is ripe, I think. So thank you very much.
Commissioner Kraft?
Yes. You know, I can understand where we'd have a large savings because the Omaha Police Department has better benefits and pays better than the Douglas County Sheriff's Office, unless that's changed in the past 4 years. A lot of what the county sheriff does is courthouse protection.
Right.
A lot of what they do is process serving. They do a lot of things the Omaha Police Department is not charged with, and they do it at a lesser cost in benefits and direct salary. So it would be more expensive just looking at these two time-consuming processes. And as Commissioner Duda said, did you say 1.6 or 1.7 million? 1.7. And many years ago?
Yes.
Okay. I would venture to say we're probably serving as many, if not more, process notifications and summons and than we used to. I would also venture to say that we may be patrolling less of the landmass, but other duties have increased and the severity of them have increased. I would, it could be done where you have a totally separate division for courthouse security and process serving. And that, it'd have to be very carefully looked at. And I know we would look at it carefully. I just don't see a cost savings. I don't see a tremendous efficiency that we'd increase in time of reaction to crimes and investigations.
Commissioner Boyle?
I just want to ask everyone to keep an open mind. The 1.7 million is something I'd really like to look at because I don't know why there would be that increased cost. It doesn't make any sense. If you have road patrol for the sheriff that are answering 911 calls in a very small area of the county, I don't get why it would cost 1.7 million if they were responding to other calls. So I don't really get that at all. And I'm not talking about dismantling the civil process system or the courthouse security. Maybe what we need to focus on first is the road patrol part of it, to see if that makes any sense, and to take a look at what Mr. Nambity suggested, which I thought also was very constructive. Anyway, I just hope we all keep an open mind. Don't come to conclusions about what it costs or what we're going to save. I've always said that, people like to say, run government like a business. Well, this is not a business. We can use business principles when we're, doing due diligence and looking at contracts and so forth, but none of our operations should make a profit. These are expenses. You have to pay money to have a sheriff's office. You have to pay money to have a police department, a fire department. None of those, the park system, none of these produce really substantial income, and that's not our goal, is to produce income for government. So we ought to look at what the expenses are, how we can merge those two if it's possible, bring them together. And remember that, the city of Omaha, they're the ones who will gain, particularly if we have the sheriff's office answering calls if it becomes a metropolitan police force. And there are ways to bring together the workforces, too, without having everything dismantled. Years ago, I was asked to do something about municipal court in the city of Omaha. There was a full-blown city of Omaha court system, and it was expensive. And being a lawyer, I was a little bit on edge about abolishing the court system with all those judges, and I did it, and I had terrific help, and it all came together, and the judges merged into the county system. So this can be done. It's not insurmountable. Let's look at it. If it doesn't work, I'll be the first one to say so. But please keep an open mind and don't get hung up on past figures. I just think we need to take a fresh look and see if there's something there. Thank you.
Commissioner Duda?
I would like to let this end, and I really will try to keep an open mind.
Okay.
And be open to suggestions of possibilities to improve things. The $1.7 million figure that I threw out was simply taking, at that point in time, the number of people on the sheriff's office, the number of people on Omaha Police, and said if you put them all at one common salary, because we know what it's like when you merge unions. You don't compromise. You don't come down. You go up. Everybody comes up to the higher salary, and it's in equalizing the salaries of the sheriff's deputies and staff up to the level that Omaha Police gets paid, because they are Omaha Police does get paid more than the Sheriff's Office. So that's the basis for that figure. And I also just have to briefly throw out that a city has certain inherent responsibilities, and fire and rescue protection are part of that, and police. And so throwing out that residents of Omaha are paying twice for law enforcement, they're no different than any resident of any other town or city in the state of Nebraska, or most of the cities in the country, that the city is responsible for its own 911 and fire and police operations. So, thank you.
Commissioner Boyle?
I'm trying not to do this, but Jim Kavanaugh and I had to talk about this. But first of all, you're assuming that 1.7 would be passed on to the county. If there's a metropolitan police force, it would be spread out over the entire county, including the city. So I would see, you know, if anybody's alarmed about this, it ought to be the city, because they're going to have to start paying for this service. It's not free. And so I would see that, you know, if it's a metropolitan police force, maybe we do something like, you know, something based like the building commission, where you have a joint operation of some sort. I mean, I think there's a whole host of options, and we can soften the blow on that 1.7. And I will try to make this, my wife always says, you know, when we're arguing about something, she says, you always have to have the final word, and I say, no, I don't. She says, yes, you do, and I say, no, I don't. So I'm always getting the, so anyway, I don't have, this will be my final comment. Thanks.
With that, again, I will keep you updated on the legislative issues. There is no need for executive session today. A reminder that we will be closed Monday, January 19th, in observance of Martin Luther King Day, and we will not meet January 20th, the day after. So the next scheduled Douglas County Board will be Tuesday, January 27th. Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Please vote. No, I can take you whenever you're ready.
You do some work. Number 3 wants to be